or SIP, performance of the purposes and functions creation, expansion, and relocation to the city, including increasing the opportunities and capacity for minority and other disadvantaged groups, on businesses and other people. For the retention by it is out of this vision that emerged the work of IH, the development of the projects, which have been introduced previously in the brochure that I have given to you in the past, entitled "Our Work in Progress." And also in the 3 rounds of economic development funding impact funding that impact Harrisburg created and administered over the past year. As Ms. Robbins said, our consultant further detail the disparities study project represents a focused effort to identify the degree to which we, as a community, have built economic development capacity among diverse constituents that comprise our state. It measures where we are against a set of factors and sets forth strategies for improvement. That study arises out of the discussion that then impact Harrisburg about the need to focus our attention on building a more diverse, inclusive, knowledgeable engagement that can respond to city, county, and state RFPs and fit solicitation protocols, and that can include businesses in cities that are diverse. The study also serves to provide data for policy and actions taken by local government, that's us, to reach that broader cross-section of the community that was identified within the strong plan as a necessary component, a necessary ingredient to building a holistic, inclusive community. I would like you to understand that we reached out to the city to partner on this initiative, and the city joined us. The county also joined this initiative solely as a financial partner. The entire cost of $250,000 for this initiative was allocated among the 3 partners. Pursuant to an RFP process, the council was chosen as the consultant on the project. The project was based on a fast track and started and completed within a 6-month time frame, including October 2023. It is our hope that we will have your endorsement of this important study this evening, which will serve as a template for improvement within the city and will help to inform your work. I am reminded, as I sat here this evening, I was reminded of a quote that I had given with, which is without a vision, the people perish. I don't often quote the Bible, but the Bible has some pretty good quotes in it, and this is what I think is in this instance. And with that, I will turn it back over to Madam Chair, and thank you once again for this opportunity.
Thank you very much. I'll now defer to Mr. Frank Robertson, Vice President of ESI.
Thank you so much, and Sheila, thank you for the introduction. And I'm sorry I couldn't be with you. I had a fortunate accident last week that kept me away in Harrisburg. I want to share my story and don't so hope that you can see that or maybe I came up with a
Yes,
Thank you so much. And so I think as you know before, have really done a great job of laying foundation for great work for impact at Impact Harrisburg, as well as with the city and our partners there as well, Hillary Green and Ms. Kelly as well. We wanted to just give you again a high level overview and know that you've seen this before, so I then know that there's some interest in having a deeper conversation which we didn't have last time. So I just wanted to just kind of do some of the highlights and some of the things that are there we can package together if we want to. But basically, the impact of this study was to get a baseline all studies are for what a utilization versus what availability is. Now, here's that a little bit, but this will provide the understanding of the city utilization already for the city. We know the city, nothing depends for the city. Relative to their availability in the marketplace. So, what's the, what are you utilizing that versus what is relative? In the marketplace brand. And then from that, AKE appropriate ways to opportunity is for that leads to the vision that we have for that utilization ensure equal access to all people. So that's what we were starting to do and that's what we for Again, I don't want to spend too much time on this time frame. I think we're related out correctly. We were we worked with the city and in fact Harrisburg and partners to do a study. We did a number of things that looked at data collection, looking at some of the calculating utilization rates, doing some platform systems. We did a lot of that work. Then in August, kind of started finding conversations with other people and also within our graph and we remember a final presentation in February. When we look at the historical spend, when we did look at your spend for fiscal year 4 or 5 year period, fiscal year 2018 to 2021, which was roughly about $150 million spent in the city, which was about 60% of that spend went to local firms. So most of that you can hear that most of that is 23%, and then Surrounding County add-ons to about 18%. Actually, and Cumberland Louisville 5% and York County 4%. So most of the spend was within the region. There was a community that was outside of the region. Another way of looking at it is not only where we spend, but so looking at the 48 almost 50% or 48% of this for construction, then 32% roughly commodities, kind of business services, things that you can buy, 13% on professional services, for things like consultants, things like that. There's 7.3 that can be classified as a when we look at availability, is a component of this very study that we're looking at you, the comparing to utilization. Availability is a portion of firms in the jurisdiction that can do business with the in the city. And what we found is that we looked at this construction services, mining business services, and then a model of all spend. You can see here, and I want to go down to the key numbers here. Construction of 20% that could be available. Professional services, 35%. And we look at good mining business services, 35%. If there's 30% volume, all availability would be able to then. There's the categories that we have. And then there are the reasons why versus there are some categories that are diverse that didn't all add up. So we want to be clear and so since it's a minority, we have particularly women and 20% here for construction, professional services, mining businesses, and all. Utilization, an important component of this very utilization with availability. So utilization is a portion of the city spend that goes toward the diversified category of the city, analyzing the historic spend. So here we have was we look at construction, diversity spend is about 2%. We look at professional services, 10%. Combined with and services 14, roughly 15%, and then all spend was approximately 8%. Disparity is if you're looking at the one of the disparity ratio, utilization by availability. The disparity ratio is the utilization is divided by availability. So the utilization is less than availability, then yield the disparity ratio that is less than 1, which is considered underutilization. And it's estimated here that for the purposes of when we look at Harrisburg, that is less than 1 when we look at that. So the structure is particularly, we look at the spend, less than 1. Here you have 0.8% professional services, 0.3 for commodity services, and 0.018. So here, what this is really saying is that it's really opportunities within all of these categories for the city to have better utilization among the diverse spend. Some of the other things that we looked at in information of this is that we looked at a couple of other areas. So business formation analysis. So the ability for people, particularly people of color, have access to foreign business. And we found that the number of self-employment rates were lower for people of color than they were other counterparts. Same active capital. One of the things that is also permanent success, even getting off the ground, is you have access to a home, or you have access to, we can also access to business capital. And again, finding that the reason that people of color have less access to things like credit or allowing for their home. Other than that, and then the third thing was some of the anecdotal evidence from our research. We actually talked to business owners, and we found some of those challenges there, and had that as part of the activation as well. from that, from all those things together, we, came with some recommendations that are, something that was attainable, but, that can also see itself. So this were time, looking at all the work spent, we were looking at, utilization for the federal service 25%, aligning with service 25%. And well, and also spend, overall 2% for the city, utilizing the worst, utilizing the worst category. We also came and we were talking with, business owners, talking with people in the city, having some of those conversations, citywide, in 4 areas, recommendations, transparency, technology, innovation, how we can marketing, increase technical assistance, and increase capacity. One of the things that we wanted to know is that the city, has done a lot, so the city was doing it, a lot of our recommendations were around, we start some things, a lot of this is happening, during COVID, and some of those things coming out of COVID, so the city actually put some, some things on pause, because of that. And they still kind of either, how they can remarketing, how they can enhance things, but one of the big words that we know is that, the given office was doing those things. And one of the things that was, another thing that was happening during that time, is that there was implementation of the tracking system, that the city is starting to implement a new database that is, I would assume now is up and running. That's going to be very helpful in kind of tracking and helping to do some of the outreach that's needed. So just wanted to give that highlight and be ready to have any conversation as well.
Thank you very much. We wish you speedy recovery. Okay, so now that we've had a proper introduction of the study findings and an introduction in some instances, let's talk about bridging the study with work. Like, where do we go next step? And to lead that discussion, let's introduce Mr. Carl Singleton, who serves as the Chief Equity and Compliance Officer of the City of Harrisburg.
Okay, for having me this evening. I would like to start off with an article, read very science article from National League of Cities from familiar with, and there's before that, what I would like to say is for the those that I can remember, this will be my one of the best times administration, legislative body should really work on that for not only one of our constituents, to leave something in perpetuity for all of our legacy and have a direct impact on ensuring that the equity inclusive, whether we're here or not, or I'm last in us. So a lot of times when we shut down asking president, there's a lot of discussion and debate around as a teacher. Trying to still kind of something that English in particular, focusing on what we're like. I believe you can still have those types of discussions. However, we won't be caught up because the answer both units, you know the who, you know the what, you know the where, you know maybe the how, experience. But what makes this uniqueness when it's very case the why. I believe we will all agree on it. Being literally and specific. Most importantly, with intentionality. So with that, I'll start off with an article on this Julie there, and highlight anything that comes from a research perspective of the national cities, their economic opportunity and workforce development. Race and equity at its core. America's racial and ethnic demographics have become increasingly diverse for the past few decades. In response to these shifts, municipalities across the nation are working to ensure that elected officials, public administrators are representative of their constituents to improve the district service delivery. Taking steps to increase that diversity can also lead to several benefits for local leaders, their workforce, and residents, including improvements to organizational performance, organizational culture, employee retention, resident trust. Understanding how the public sector workforce companies, understanding how the public sector workforce prepares the residents they serve is critical. Continuously reviewing how, however, or how governments included in the National League of Cities analysis revealed that, on average, white people were overrepresented in the local workforce, while groups of Black, Indigenous, and people of color experienced underrepresentation. Improve the inequitable representation of diverse racial and ethnic public sector workforce. Municipalities have a variety of methods to improve outcomes across Africans. Here are the National League of Cities top 5 strategies for advancing DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility, and hiring. Advance DEI for the designated department staff. It will allow this office to be. Municipalities work to advance DEI in their organization should consider establishing a designated DEI department and or leader to be compensated for their work in this space. By having a designated department in this leadership, lead to better coordination across departments, elevate pressure from the staff to educate their peers on implementing DEI work. We're looking to increase the diversity of your municipalities, workforce, and local leaders should look for ways to improve applicants through multiple methods. Additionally, improving strategies for posting jobs on multiple improving platforms and promoting flexible applicant requirements, such as accepting years of experience and postgraduate requirements, but thoughtfully assessing whether postgraduate are necessary for the job at all. We can see how that has even grown at the state level in current administration, whether or not all jobs specify certification and or degree and local education degrees, making some of those statewide jobs even more acceptable residents for economy, which we can also do. Transparency by sharing work for data across government agencies, such as libraries, schools, and more. 4. Consider DEI compensation and employee benefits. Municipalities may improve retention rates among diverse candidates by providing competitive compensation packages, non-wage benefits, including opportunities incorporating these benefits. Local governments with better ability to provide applicants and improve employee retention. Lastly, provide feedback opportunities. Enlist employees of color. Human resources practices that promote DEI go beyond hiring and should be woven throughout the employee process for local companies. Opportunities for staff feedback should be regularly provided, take the form of workplace culture, reviews and pathways examining for employees, examination for employees to advance the organization. I'll just get down to the end. As municipalities consider opportunities to advance PDIA in their higher practices, local leaders should review National League of Cities newest brief, improving municipal service delivery with diverse and equitable hiring. The brief further explores how to incorporate PDIA framework across municipal hiring practices, current trends in municipal workforce representation, and example cities that implement 5IA strategies outlined here. It goes on to talk about to learn more about how the municipal workforce is using American Rescue Plan dollars and funds to cover the pandemic, their references other sources. I read that to say, we're talking about workforce and education, talking about making sure inclusivity is done with fidelity. And without seeing the community's role for the community to have something sustained, implemented, that has to be followed in independent of who's in office. I will say this, that around here, in the community, I will consider the greatest accomplishment, the legacy of service, of inclusivity, with equity at its core, and rooted with fidelity. So, in these roles, and this current role, I'm looking forward to needs to ask local, state, and national leaders to come to the board and to serve on the status of America at the Brown team. And we talk about how do we come together as leaders in their perspectives, in education, law and justice, health, and workforce, and bringing evidence-based practices to the administration, consideration, and things down your approval of the kind of legislation. So what I like to do at this time, as several of our members, some of you may be familiar with our members, others is the first time introduction. Talk about what we do as we gather once a month as an entire team there for virtually discuss evidence-based best practices. We can move down to consideration as we try to move our city forward from a human resources workforce perspective with the devil movement. We try to grow not only internally workforce, but our community economically overall. So, first person I want to bring is or the next director of the Harrisburg Region Chamber of Commerce, who serves as a co-chair on our workforce equity subcommittee. Brian.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ryan Underwood, Carl Seven, President and CEO of the Harrisburg Regional Chamber. I'm a proud resident for the city of Harrisburg and the Midtown Harrisburg. And Carl asked me to begin tonight by talking a little bit about why. Why are we at the table? Why is this important for us as an organization? Why is it important as a region? And why this work continues to be important, not only for our membership and our community, but also to the good work that the mayor and Carl has done, gathering, convening regional leaders around this topic. And I think real quick, simply, when I had the opportunity to join the chamber about 2 years ago, July 1st, one of the first things we did is take a hard look internally at ourselves on things that we could do to improve these areas. Now, we're a membership-based business organization, right? So right off the bat, there's an exclusivity involved with who you are as an organization. We felt through our board of directors, our executive committee, and team, that we needed to first and foremost make a change in our core values, and making sure that inclusivity is our first core value, and that we are an open, transparent, and inclusive organization. And that has everything to do with who we are, from hiring practices, to the way we post jobs, to our membership benefits, to our membership tiers, and also how we go about leading the organization through our board leadership. And we want to be at the table for these conversations and play a role. Because not only is it the right thing to do, protecting the spirit of our, Paul and I had a long conversation last week, and one thing my high school debate coach said to me was never argue morals or ethics. It was them going around in circles. So the second core value we added is that we're going to be a data-driven organization. And I've been asked and told that I'm a quote unquote numbers guy or data guy. I think all business leaders should be a number of people for data people. And the data it's pretty clear, it's pretty evident that this is the right thing to do to grow your business as well. That as recently as last year, we tend to release studies that show that member leadership in business organizations perform better over time. And that's over 3, 4, 5 year longitudinal data. Those organizations, companies are going to perform better in their bottom line than those that are not diverse as well. And the sad reality is that while there was a lot of movement in the wake of what transpired following the tragic death of George Floyd, we've got a large percentage of our business community that McKinsey can classify as resting on their laurels, slow movers or laggards, right? We made a lot of movement early on, but what have we done since that day? And what do we continue to do to grow? And as the data you saw in the disparity study, our own economic baseline research that we did is one of the first things when I had a chance to take over, showed that as a region, we're doing pretty well. And I talked about that. Our region has grown at a rate that's pretty as fast as the envy of some parts of this state. But that has not been shared prosperity. We can be honest about that. We need to reflect on that. Those industries that are growing at the fastest rate carrying our economy, a white person is 1.5 times more likely to own that business. And as we look at our region business community, and as we look at our work, it's going to be important to address these issues as we go forward. And the numbers we saw were the exact same numbers we saw. And those opportunities that we see and we hear most often about non-white business ownership, and that is well in areas like construction, procurement, of that nature. And so what we think is important to do is to come to the table and be a part of what that solution is. We're grateful for the opportunity through the Mayor's Equity Roundtable to have that conversation. There's a couple of things that we highlight about that work and why it's important and why we're excited to play a role. And I really think we're at the beginning of what possibly could be done there. As co-chair of one of the Police Harrisburg Development Committee, we have been blessed that the flag was flown, and we've seen folks from not just the city of Harrisburg, but I think it's really important. We've seen folks from around the region. I'm a graduate of Elizabethtown College down the road, and I was pleased that Elizabethtown eagerly, not with Mike Roddy as board member, but eagerly came to the table and wanted to be part of the solution, because I think they see as well that the success of the city of Harrisburg is critically important, not just the Dauphin County, not just the Harrisburg capital metropolitan area, but the broader region as well. And this is really, really important work, and it's going to require a lot of hands-on deck to make that happen. So the first thing I've taken away is the ability to be really high-level decision makers. I think there's real value in leading by convening, bringing those folks together around a shared purpose to address some of these issues. So in the workforce development group, what we have done to date is meet everyone virtually to have multiple conversations around things that we believe on recommendations the city can do in terms of better transparency, like as you heard from the consult here around the work and some of the recommendations kind of sync up really well with the National League of Cities and Municipalities said about workforce development, but also then as a business community, what types of things can we do to utilize the leaders we have around that room to provide clear mentee opportunities, but also the leadership that is going to require a lot of different folks working together, providing this, opening those doors around all of our major businesses, and they're all represented at that round table. And if you read and looked through the disparity study about the 4 very specific recommendations, those are areas we're going to continue to look at, and that includes continuing to support certification, because that's critical for this work as we go forward, and making sure that we have apprenticeships, tradesmen, and other folks that can do this work in terms of minority and businesses. Provide stronger infrastructure for communication, so you can make these opportunities aware for those individuals as well. We provide multiple outlets for in-person and virtual engagement. We've seen that a lot by some of our major employers. We can see that a leader in this, bringing people together to learn about opportunities. We will be at the table as a chamber, and certainly as an round table, help move those efforts forward as well. Thank you.
As always, Harris, and also the co-chair of the Board of Development. And you heard it as the electors who, for time served on at the regional water board. And how we initially started off with how any type of policy regarding equity in the city, and how that can see from many layers and really adopting this policy as super critical to them.
Thank you. The last time I actually sat in this seat, I was named as a board member of the capital, which is the longest serving on that board of directors, but that definitely prepared me to serve in the type of roles. As I mentioned, it's Brian mentioned, I'm co-chair of workforce development. We spend a considerable amount of time focusing on workforce development here in the city of Harrisburg and in the region. Brian already outlined some of the recommendations that we put forward. It was a huge part of our deliberations to review the disparity study and to see if in fact what we felt and what we saw every day here in the state of Harrisburg is actually going to be documented through that process. I can tell you, as I served on the board of capital regional water, Mr. Singleton and a few of his friends pressed us very hard on a regular basis about doing that. We had created policies, we created goals around minority participation, but over and over, we found ourselves, the board found ourselves approving projects with very low participation of minority contractors. In the disparity study, we saw this evening, the capacity here in the city of Harrisburg region for construction, for professional services, and yet constantly receiving the same partners at it. We put some robust policies and processes in place to improve those numbers. And I can say with much appreciation for Mr. Singleton and several others. When I first joined the board, there was standing remotely. There were, I wouldn't say protesters, but some spirited conversations and concerns and recommendations on what should be done to improve that participation. And by the time that I left the board, no one was involved. Because not only were we meeting the goals and the expectations we were setting. So I think absolutely we were a huge part of that, as well as some of the factors and the bin showed up at those meetings, and we heard it and we achieved this. Since that time, I actually stood or participated in or served in the role of local head of Flyer University for a Fortune 500 company, and I can say that we also had a stand-up program that did not exist. Actually, the city of Harrisburg and capital waters was ahead of us. It takes a mandate from the very top. It takes the passion from the very top that gets pushed down. There has to be real goals. What we heard tonight was baseline data. Data that shows us where we have been, where we are today. Most recent year, but it's just the start. The tracking system, we heard about that. That's crucial. You know, what's the same and what's not there. So we had to develop that. So again, that's a part of recognition that is absolutely crucial. Setting goals, having rewards as well as consequences for not meeting those goals. Extremely crucial. Having an office or some structure. She out for this morning that you have to have some structure. Someone has to be in charge of making sure that they're meeting the goals. That there's constant light on those goals and the process and opportunities. So there's a number of things that we developed within the corporations, there were a ton of things that we put on the table, bring at the round table. It's, I don't want to say it's not rocket science. The template's there, the models are there, the will is there, it's just a matter of us all putting together. And it's the one thing I would like to stress, it's not about eliminating existing partners, existing suppliers, existing vendors. Adding more seats to the table and making sure that the process is transparent, equitable, and fair. And if you're not tracking, you're not setting goals, you're not having words and consequences. It's a big reduction.
Our law justice said we subcommittee that Mr. Rick's in regards to the importance of that, when we go to this type of work.
Madam Chairman, Vice Chairman, members of the council. You will, that's the element zero down to the cover. It is important to acknowledge the disparity study, the work that has been done in the story. This is a moment in time, and this community will never happen. It will never happen again. Right? For the first time we went on, things happening again. What you all are about to do, quite the story. Quite the story, all of us in the city, all of us in the community. So I heard Philadelphia Ford ask people to endorse this disparity. I want to echo the same idea because it can make a huge difference in the lives of many people in this city. So I have two comments now. One of them is to say thank you to the city of Harrisburg, to Philadelphia Ford, the people that she works with, and to the county for subsidizing the center. This is important. And I also want to say that your participation as an endorser of this day provides a foundation, a base on which we can build an awful lot of the things next week. We've already begun to talk about ideas on how to incorporate young people, people who are not historically involved in this process, in the results of this study. With your involvement, sources of this process, nothing but this. Thank you for participation in this process.
Our last one, kind of obviously, also work, as you see, recurring theme, we have a large number of workforce, the committee coming to the table. We also do the education, the education equity subcommittee as well. With Dr. Waters, the old CRO, Harrisburg School District is a member of that, as well as Dr. Stephen, as well as Vice Chancellor for State Schools and Education and others. So we have another education now, as well as Harrisburg University. Dr. Chris, the lead industrial manufacturing engineer at Harrisburg University.
Thank you all. Thank you for council for having me on tonight. My question for the solutions is the diversity equity and consulting company. We're also members of the mayor's equity roundtable for inclusion. Amongst other things, our company is currently implementing the supportive service contracts for PennDOT, for the Pennsylvania Department for the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation. In 2019, we began to implement the DEP Supportive Service Center. In 2020, we began to implement the state program, the DEP Supportive Service Center. In 2021, we began to implement the on-the-job training supportive service center. And in 2022, we started working on a federal pilot for a mentor coaching program. And I say that because a lot of activities, things that we're currently doing, we saw some of those recommendations in your report. And in our capacity on the workforce development committee, we are sharing ideas, best practices, but also helping the city to streamline and identify the resources that they already have to address some of these scenarios, right? Because there are other resources and other programs out there. So one of the major things that we want to try to do is help the city not reinvent the wheel, right? When trying to address these problems. But one thing that I did want to do is just stop to bring to the attention the importance of the findings that are brought forth in your disparity study. I want to highlight part of what we did in 2018 is review the PennDOT disparity study with PennDOT and help them better understand what those findings meant and they were impacting. So the major takeaway, the major point of the disparity study, like we were told by Mr. Robinson, is to get those disparity index, right? It's to divide the utilization by the availability and to figure out how far under the number one you are. And just to recap that, you were at 19%, 0.19 for minorities. You were at 11% and 0.11 for women, and combined, they got back up to 18%. All had to be not really sure I did that, but besides that, so another way to look at that is on the dollar. Minorities are based on the utilization and availability. Minorities are only getting 19 cents on the dollar that they're supposed to be getting. That's another way to say that. Women are only getting 11 cents on the dollar, and that means they're getting 18 cents on the dollar. Also, to put that into context, the courts, federal courts, call egregious disparity anything under 80%. So we're like 400% under egregious disparity, which, you know, there's legal ramifications from the other side. So I just wanted to put that into perspective and let you know that this isn't like kind of, we need to do better. This is, we need to do something immediately. We need to take drastic measures, right? And once you're given this data, you know, the city is kind of liable for that to act on it. So I wanted to make sure that you understood the urgency of the situation, and it was explained that way. But I also want to let you know that you do have resources and you do have things in place, and systems in place to help out of the situation. And like I said, one of the things that we do for PennDOT is we implement a supportive service system that will help folks educate or disseminate educational information, network or build professional networks, and also promote and also recruit people for jobs and projects. So kind of bringing the entire diverse ecosystem together to address a lot of the issues that were identified on the disparity study as a major part of what we're doing to PennDOT right now with their program development. So however we can help Harrisburg develop this program, right? It's going to be a whole program, not project. It's going to be a long-term program we have to put together, putting all of the resources to do it. However, to help the city do that, we're here to do that for the long term. Thanks for having me. For letting me take those questions.
Point of clarification, Robinson are not related. So this, not that we know. Not that we know, we didn't say that, not that we know. with that, the need talk, I want to show, body work that's going on outside of the state meeting office, but in terms of how we're bringing both state and national leaders, to the table with regards to their best practices, ensure that, how we decide the steers is to have, we're agreed to down here in regards of moving our communities forward. So again, with the Delta. And it will be here long after that will be again. With support from outside of my children, and I'm sincere when I say outside of reinforced life, one of the greatest accomplishments I will be able to say, but here anywhere else, that we were able to bring something, put it into legislation in perpetuity that will ensure inclusive and move forward long after I'm gone. So thank you, which we will understand, which we not benefit from change.
Thank you very much. I'd like to pause and open the floor for questions from our colleagues now that we've heard the reintroduction of the study findings, and now we've heard a little bit more about the mayor's equity roundtable and some of the recommendations that the subcommittees have made. I'd like to begin with Councilman Rodriguez. Do you have any questions for anyone that has presented thus far?
No questions, more of a statement, Madam President, like the county collaborating with y'all, and the administration, and design category for this point. And long overdue, and what it shows is, just thank you for presenting. Works. Those are the questions.
Thank you. Councilwoman Daniels, not sure if you can hear. I wanted to see if you had any questions for any of the participants thus far.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Majors, any questions?
First, I just want to follow and say thank you. Thank you to everyone that worked on this. It's been a long time. But also really, as Mr. Simmons pointed out, what this legislative body does is only a piece of the pie. We've had legislation on the books in the city of Harrisburg with respect to diversity in contracting. So thank you. Anybody that sits at this table can only try to put laws into place. It is up to an administration, and this goes upon several administrations, to ensure that the things that this council and this city say they want to do are implemented. Had a lot of, I'm choose my words carefully here. We have a lot of folks that have cycled in and out of City Hall, and we still are dealing with the same issue. So I appreciate all the work that's being done. I want to see it succeed. I'm not trying to throw jabs at anyone. I just want it to be clear that most of us weren't born in 1983 that are sitting up here. We still want to make sure. And just being honest, most of us, the majority of the members of city council, the majority of the members of city council were not alive when the initial piece put into place. I am the son of a person who was involved in equal opportunity and employment. I remember when the city of Harrisburg was looking at Senator Stadium and had a fight to have minority participation in that process. We're fighting again for minority participation in city contracting again. We want to see this move forward. One of the questions I have, based upon the study, is do we look at numbers just solely based on the city of Harrisburg? So there's one thing, it's one thing to look at our county or region. One of the things that is a sticking point for me is also want to ensure that we're employing the residents of the city of Harrisburg So our study didn't really contemplate residents of the city of Harrisburg and where we sit. We looked at our spend overall with the county and our region, but we didn't contemplate it. City of Harrisburg was.
I'd like to take if I may, this, just I'd like to take kind of get it in turn to response. So we did both, I think, but because, which was necessary, in other words, we don't specifically at the city of Harrisburg. And then what we did was to divide the circle, if you will, and to also look at the surrounding areas, because both are important. One, okay, I see.
I don't disagree.
I know you don't, I know that, and I appreciate that, but the reality is that, there was a need to also, to look in with some particularity, as in like Harrisburg, did, for example, that grant program, which were specifically for residents of the city of Harrisburg. So, I get that, but we also needed to widen the circle, and I'm going to ask, Mr. Robinson, Frank Robinson, because we now have discussed that, which is Robinson. It is of which we speak. So Frank Robinson, Frank, if you're there, maybe you can provide some greater level of clarity around the way in which we build the protocols in terms of the looking at communities.
Yeah, I think that's right, and there are, I'm just looking at your scale on that there are, when you look at the various studies, there is a precedent, if you will, and I think that I should think that right, so we did start off with that, and then we looked at a lot of the basis of the education is based on the city, and so that's kind of what one thing that we looked at. And then another way is about that we also we look at the study in detail. We reach out to a lot of the organizations that are through Harrisburg to get feedback from. So there is a precedent that there are meeting with study in totality. It does look at the individual in Harrisburg, but we have to scale it to what we have to for sort of lunacy of the study. We had to look at it, we started in, we got it wide next door again, we get it to impact capital. Partly because of from where studies happened that we know that's one.
Okay, I understand that. Again, one of the things that we talked about was talked about there, we're not looking at that data, or we're not capturing it. We're going to be missing something in our overall picture. So I have got, and we cannot capture the data of the region. I think we should. I think we also should look at impact on businesses that are located within the city of Harrisburg, so we can collect that data and have a separate, I mean, it will show us what we all know to be true, which is that, and we know it, so this is our place in the region. Harrisburg is capital city. There are landlocked. A lot of businesses decide to expand outside of the city proper. And the residents of the city of Harrisburg, no matter if it's a Fortune 500 company that's located in the city of Harrisburg, MBE, WBE, DBE, any business may not be located in the city of Harrisburg. They may be located in Fort Lancaster County, Dauphin County, etc. They're coming to do work in the city. We're spending millions of dollars of taxpayer money from the city of Harrisburg. And I just want to be us to capture and be able to quantify the same way we've done with our regional spend, the city spend. So if I'm, the bottom line is we've done with business. That's it. I sit here with two hats. So I'm off on the board at Capital with that Harris. And so it's not about, it's about the numbers. And my latest, I'm not an expert in disparity studies. Work hard. The bottom line is if we try to capture the amount of spending just solely on Harrisburg residents or something like Harrisburg business, we wouldn't have a study. Sample size of the business. What I'm saying is, you're right. We're agreeing. Again, it's right. I know it's what I was asking. It's that how Not that these people make good reasons. And that's right, so what we do, non-scientifically, in our office, at the compliance, is we pull monthly, the state. Mom, this is my colleague line, we go for, we've been tracking since January of 2020, we got in office. January 3rd, I'm sorry, February 3rd, the month that, to see how we spent. To this point, my records, that non-scientific, but just my knowing, looking, researching who are minority businesses. We had not gone over 12% in 1 month, thus far. I can get you that. Is there a mechanism that we can use? To your point, you can lay legislation, I try to agree. And one of the reasons why I was saying so passionately that we need something in record, because we have some institutional concerns as well in terms of not being comfortable with one business spending where we used to spend, right, because of relationship. But part of the misogyny that's going on with my colleagues is to understand that doing business daily doesn't mean that's not doing it well. Okay? So when we are here, coming down, we need work together, quite simply, put things down, say now, we should be accountability, notice my ready. I think you don't mind those, how ready actually this about it. Because you have to, you can't do that, the mayor and I had this conversation. She agree with reports and together. If anybody puts the microphone like this, ask about minorities thing. I'm not lying to you. We are here, it's all people here. We do a better job by number one, recognizing that we have. Number two, laying the foundation and what that looks like for to do that. In this relationship, this coming down is not to say you do it or we do it or administration does it. It's that we do it, we put something down in writing, and now going forward, there's accountabilities. Our things they do what we have to do, done 83 more. It's about how we make sure leading. That's why I said the conversation, how.
Right, yes, and none of what I said was anti the right person. Yeah. I want to know, I want us to know that. I also want us to put in here how much money we spend with the city. And for years that are located in the city, that even our MDW directory that is on the city website. I just was sitting here going through of the 17 pages, there's a bit of no address, and I probably got about 1,500 businesses that are physically located in the city of Harrisburg. I didn't finish the whole thing, but again, I just want us to be capturing that information and we can make those records that you're looking to gather, public documents, and work with Hillary and our to do the economic development team as well as you to make our analytics more robust and done in a way that is visual so that folks can see so much of what Mr. Frank Robinson did with the actual study. When you break it down, look at it on the county map, I think for me, that's a visual that folks can look at and see, okay, I do see where our tax dollars are going. How can we then look to this body make some changes alongside with everything, and then also our business. I'm glad we have folks from this committee here involved, and I'll let Mr. Robinson be able to so maybe look at the study again, run through what the draft once, but I'm sure we're here for buy and hopefully as we develop legislation, we will get more buy and more larger business community again, not just to have ownership and those doing business with the city, but hey, what does your workforce look like? That works with one thing for a engineering firm to be 51% owned by a MDWD, but who are they hiring? Where do they live? when we ask those questions of folks that we contract, but currently we find out that, hey, that might be the ownership, but all of the rest of those funds. So how can we again work and do those mental ownership programs on programs here? Or,
Well, yeah, we want to talk, if I may, I just, first of all, if I can just say that what Ms. Bailey, you're absolutely right, that we need to collect better data, and that's because Mr. Singleton was saying. There is, I think we all are in agreement there, and that's very nice. We did, as we moved through this report, we took clear notice of the need to, as the city built its new IT architecture for procurement, to build into that the protocols for, the template for collecting that data and for, and the assessment that's necessary. And Mr. Robinson or perhaps Marita Kelly will want to talk a little bit more about that, but we did spend time on that initiative, that's critical.
I mean, I don't want to.
That's, I just want to say that's correct. So now going forward, through the recommendations, through that, that's not happening now. There's the system, partly stated, the new system is going to allow you to do what you talk about, Councilman, is one to capture that top line data, or what was also important to your point, is that subline data, the subcontracting, where those are. And that actually was not there before, but it's going to be there now. It's one, in the IT, but two, we're talking about some data collection, as a representation forward. So you can do exactly what you just said, that after that information, after that, we report back. So that's part of the recommendation, part of IT. So I'm confident with knowing that it's happening, we can about that. We can, we always come back, this and another way help you to have a light up because of all this being placed. So part of our job is also to advise us and things that's happening.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Vice President Green, any questions?
Thank you. I don't really have many questions, for like council majors, a lot of the points that I was thinking of. But I will say that as we move forward, hopefully with the technology, we can track these things moving forward so that we don't have to do an entire disparity study to say we know. Just because we need the data of the technology now is very easy to run a spreadsheet, get the information. Also, very important to make sure we don't forget to revisit the data. Because you collect a lot of data, it sits on the shelf and never gets used, never gets revisited. And you don't know if you're going towards your goal, you never look back and go, okay, this is where we were, and this is where we are, but we're at the same place we were. And so all of this was for nothing. So it's important to make sure we regularly revisit it from an administrative standpoint, but also from a council standpoint, to make sure that we're bringing it to the forefront on a regular basis, sure it is and look back. And then lastly, transparency, making sure that the public is able to easily, not that it's hidden on a web page somewhere or in fact the office, not behind the door. Because the public also by being able to do that data, bring up points, I think those are all important things to remember as we look forward. I do want to thank you all for the hard work you have done and give that information to us so that we can work on this legislation, making sure that it does happen, because it's disappointing to know the underrepresentation, but then it's also not surprising because we all do know that works. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Councilman Lawson, any questions?
Yes, thank you. And being the only council member who still remember 1983. I want to repeat the sentiment you have, saying that the only reason I'm sitting in this seat right now, the only reason I presented myself for appointment was to work in this issue. So I also want to leave a legacy. So I want to make sure that we are able to work on some best practices what we can do to craft an ordinance that will one, get it at the time so that it will operate us and carry several legislation. And two, I want to make sure that it's something that is not just a mandate from the city for contracts, but that it's something that will invite the participation of private businesses that are not doing business with the city. So are there best practices that you've seen in your research? I think that Mrs. Howard, I've heard great, stories outside of the youth program, what CRW has done in the past. One in, creating a program that is fair, but also, has great, measurement. So really what I'd like to see, are there, approaches with the carrot and the stick, and how can we draft our ordinance here so we can, make sure that it is something that's very, lasting. I think that's a great question. I think, as I said before, we're on the path. So it's Councilman Major's point. It's about making sure interdepartmental that is being done as well. It's about tracking. So we have, as we mentioned thus far, various components to this work. From my perspective, I think it takes this piece of legislation, accountability, internally and externally. We're going to see a question in terms of the private sector. If they don't want to play, they don't have to. Zero. It's pretty much nothing you can do except ask. What I'm focused on is what we can control. That's the reality. What we can control are those public dollars that are coming in that we are in charge of the ability to allocate equity with regards to the best service possible for our residents. Make sure that the city running efficiently and effectively. So I say that to say, unless you have a magic wand, we've probably been, in America about the same amount of time. I know you stayed a bit more than me. But in all seriousness, with regards to asking those who need equity, inclusivity as a threat to their power, I'm going to focus in on pro right now on side of the government. While the cameras are on, and I guess in my spirit time when I retire, I'll worry about shaming them for doing the right thing. What are they doing?
And I understand that fully. I guess, but part of that comment is more actually with my council members, that there may be ways that we can try to create incentives for businesses to participate. I understand that there are incentives that are out there for business participate in several aspects. They just don't do it. But my thoughts are right, and that's
So I mean, and I'm not giving up on saying this discussion right now. This is something we can control. The alert is out there. They want to really decide to consider being honest partners at the table, making sure things are fair exchange, will stay go robbery, and then people on this alert. At this point, then once they're at the table, they be able to discussion that can be had. Once they're there and truly committed, and we have active audience at that point. There's a right now with regards, and that's another so much. But when you see certain entities doing business downtown Harrisburg, and the question is, why haven't this been done, or why isn't there any minorities on these jobs that when their response is, you probably have this, my money. Yeah, let's see. When a certain infrastructure goes up, on the 6th Street corridor, wonder why there's no minority businesses sitting, participating over there to the tune that people like it. We dropped the ball and needing congressional leadership with regards to how local participation was defined. Local participation was defined from the federal level, region, and northeastern region. Didn't mean Harrisburg like we thought. And the two individuals, senators, both admitted that, you know, they could have done a better job with respect to the South Harrisburg.
I think that is something I'd like to be very specific about it. I am a very straightforward person, they should have noticed. But I am, it's who I am, as I, you know, I'm this one well before 1983. And so I've learned my strengths in that regard, and I don't mind that at all. Okay, the first is, be clear. State your intent, be clear, it really does work. It works. When Harrisburg University puts up a building and you want greater participation, tell them. Tell them. And then work on it. All right? But you gotta be committed. Don't shirk be courageous. I mean, kind of affirmative, be courageous. All right? There are entities here, even the feds. Be present, be courageous. Even with private capital, you have leverage. Leverage is an important word in all of this. That's the first thing. The second thing is, I want to go back to something Ms. Harris said. And that is that we measure what we value. So there's a need for, this is me standing aside as a non-public official. There's a need for accountability that moves in two directions, from you to the administration, and from the administration to your body. That is critical, so that if this is important to you, what you will do is what Ms. Harris said. What you will do is you will build an accountability structure and you will adhere to it, right? So what that means is that Mr. Singleton will take that data and he'll bring it to you. And you will communicate with him, vice versa, and with the mayor, and with your city solicitor. But that's the structure that you need, that template. You talked about templates. You need that, because without that, you won't have the level of discipline. You all are very busy people. You need a structure that would, it's the way we have to live our lives. Because that holds you accountable for those actions that you need to take. And it also comes to that level of communication, okay, between the two entities, between the legislative and the administrative, the executive branches of government. When you have that, then when you go out into the marketplace, when you talk to your colleagues, they will know that you really are communicating effectively, and they know that you're serious, and they know that that you will speak not necessarily as one voice. You're independent actors, but you will speak in a coherent manner that has an ordinance for a mission and vision statement to which you all adhere. Those are critical pieces. Even with an ordinance, you still have to take the action to implement what it is that you're saying. I hope you took that in a positive way and not in negative ways. Those are steps, though, that are necessary.
Okay, can I follow up on a couple of this practical things from the conversation? In some of our recommendations, we talked about this. So, one, to the point about transparency, that's talked about. One of our recommendations is creating a dashboard. So, recommendation 1.3, we've seen some great practices where we have some key statistics on dashboards that are updated the numbers that you have that showing people what it does. One, it's transparency, but it's a window. People see that the city is doing something or attracted to that, and it becomes attractive in for more than one way. Another way is to look at the pyramid of the type of thing that being procured. And maybe see this in a couple of places. Sometimes when you divide that, if it was maybe there was a big purchase that you used to do $60,000, maybe you divide that by 3. There are certain split of services in particular, and that allows for smaller contractors to bid on that. That way, there's another way to get them. That could be another practical way of helping smaller businesses, where you can get on the floor so they can get that experience, and then your city acting as a catalyst for them to be a part of larger projects. If you haven't talked to maybe there's smaller portions of the that down. But you can look at that as well. The other thing that, I'll reflect on, I think that we have a lot of people to move there is this advocacy. When we were talking with people, we were, wondering, wow, people didn't know about that, but we have a lot of good partners there that continue to be engaged, that can hopefully bring people on. That could be, something that's that could be, activated a little bit more, with the partnerships, that we, this was part of the faculty, and we, so I just want to talk about, there's some practical things that leads to conversation there that can happen now that help create that kind of synergy to continue to push this forward.
Thank you, that's everything.
And thank you. Councilwoman Rawls, any questions?
Thank you, President Dow, and just thank you all for being here tonight, giving us the information, doing the disparity study. I think what it basically said was, I told you so, you know, here it is. But knowing that what data does is able to allow you to move forward, we give you proof of what's happening. So with that said, I have prominent two questions. One, when I was looking under the recommendations, I saw encourage and support certification. And that rang very big to me because I think all of us in our council always talk about work enforcement. I think we all do in the city and how we do that to include city residents, whether they're black, brown, other, it doesn't matter. You live in the city, how can we do that's in your own community? Which, as we were sitting here saying, how sometimes we try to get incentives so people can do that. And sometimes that always gets me, we always have everything. It's almost like we put ourselves at the table. So how do we get those certifications to create our own almost ecosystem here, make people come to us? So my first question is, are there any cities who implement and encourage and support certification? And if so, what does that look like?
So that's one of the reasons why response, that page, so there's that round table. Work that he does. We use to provide certification program. As well as within that, he actually, his organization actually, he's at the hub of what's happening. In terms of that's where that is actually taking place or available to take place. One of the things that we're trying to do, talking about direct transparency, because of past practices, people who haven't been welcome to this. And the bottom line is, when you're trying to tell someone who historically has been turned away for serious matter, that doesn't look well, right? So one of the things that we've been working on with my views and the fact when the working child rights office, as well as with Hillary, Rito, the finance, is with regards to procurement is to add some things to the application they come in to working hours, which is self-service. So tell the city that you are show up as in terms of like, you know, some people don't see that certification, unfortunately, as valid, so they don't, so we can't force it. What we do is encourage. So one of the things that we do, with our student that certification process is to get more business in the pipeline and let them know we're serious. We encourage that self-certification. Once that self-certification is done, another layer is my assistant, Collins, and he goes through after we get the paperwork regarding new businesses coming to the city. He goes through the applications and he makes direct phone calls. So he asks, are you a minority business? Would you like to report as a minority business? And this is again self-certified. If you choose your they say yes. The next question is, are you certified as a small minority diverse business? Two different questions. Then it is, who are you certified with, and which areas are you certified in? So that, I believe, has allowed us to generate a more robust and true pipeline of NWB that we can truly engage once we come up with how we do the how, again, with regards to the allocation balance, extent, and hopefully at that point, we'll certainly be able to answer those point certification, make sure that they, those businesses out there, those business, fund business in the city, understand the benefits of certification as well. Not that it's another state, and we've got identified in the school. So that's the education.
Thank you.
Might I add a point, please? I think we're glad to hear this. I met with IT yesterday, and we received an update concerning Munis. And IT has now enabled the certification and self-certification opportunity for all vendors. Now that's, the vendors have already been entered, so now we have to work with Mr. Singleton and the screen and myself to actually go back and be able to check those boxes off. And the self-certification, we are asking for an amendment because they just have the two categories, and this screen is asked for the full categories that are required for the self-certification. Plus, we're working with Mr. Grover for an affidavit for self-certification, so it hasn't been implemented. But the fact that it's already available as an option for us to help to track that information, I think will be extremely valuable to yourself and myself. So that we've always worked together, and we continue to work together since we came in on January 3rd, 2022 as the mayor. And I'm very proud to be part of this effort, but I thought everybody would be thrilled to hear that we moved one huge step forward to be able to work with Mr. Grover and his team to be able to execute that final piece, that the legal component of it before we're able to actually move forward. But it is available and it will be executed here sometime in the next. Or maybe soon.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing
But
that.
jumping over too much soon.
I'm going to add one final step, which is that Impact Harrisburg, I talked about the organization engaged in the next steps, and I took a look back at my number. The regional chamber and gave them a big smile because one of the activities in which we are engaged is working with the regional chamber around building a platform for educating those who are interested in starting small business in the and that is a process that is ongoing, but we are working diligently and with sufficient haste to get that done. So we are cognizant of the need to really build platforms that can help bring people on board and help them move through the process. Okay, so that when they get to certification, they will have a level of education, some basic knowledge, and a level of sophistication that will enable them to move forward. So I think there's just a component of this coming together. M&T Bank, of course, was working with Harrisburg University, which I mentioned twice. Take up that which you will. They're working with Harrisburg University to build a small business community. So we'll keep a close eye on that as well, right? That's what we need to do. So there are pieces that are working. There's the clock is being built. It does need to make sure that all the time works. Nice.
Thank you for that information. That was very helpful. My last question was, Mr. Singleton, I think you mentioned another solution was creating a department. Am I correct, Preston? I don't know.
Yes, I'm saying that you all are going to compare.
Oh,
meetings.
okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Everybody finds-
That's, yeah, that's what I thought, so I wanted to make sure, I was like, wait, I'm finding the word. I was like, I thought we had, the word, there was a lot of letters. I was like, I'm really thinking, because I want to check. If I'm not clear, I asked. So, okay, thank you. That was it.
Okay, thank you. For me, in reviewing the study itself, I really honed into section 6, which is the anecdotal evidence. I thought that that was very telling because while I feel we have the perception that, or we've heard rather, that bonding is an issue with some of our NBEs and WBEs, we don't know all of the challenges and barriers. So I found that particular section to be helpful. Some highlights include bid opportunities and bid awards, and I'm reading directly from the study. An important set of observations concern businesses' perception around the accessibility of bid opportunities. Businesses interviewed have the perception that a connection or relationship with a city department or a city employee is necessary to do business with the city of Harrisburg. This perception includes both bid notifications and contract awards. We know that, I think we've spoken to the history perhaps surrounding some of those relationships, I guess we can call them, but we know that there is room for correction there. Another note, connecting and working with prime contractors, subcontractors and smaller firms, particularly minority and women-owned ones, express difficulty in connecting with majority-owned prime contractors. They would like the opportunity to connect with and build relationships with prime contractors, but feel excluded from doing so. Some firms were frustrated that primes self-perform much of the work or that they cannot find teaming opportunities because primes continually use the same subcontractors. Payment delays. The city's past financial difficulties have impacted the trust of local businesses. Several business owners have concerns over milestone billing and lag time on invoice payment, impacting their cash flow. Additionally, a few firms expressed either their perception that the city is unable or unwilling to pay debt. A lack of a local presence. Minority and women-owned firms in particular registered dismay that their success as local businesses did not seem to be a priority for city government. Technical assistance. Many businesses were either unaware of the resource or placed more stock in a relative lack of human contact in the form of knowledgeable city staff helping them navigate available resources. And finally, the NBE and WBE certification. Although the city of Harrisburg is not a certifying agency and does not provide direct technical assistance for certification applications, the anecdotal evidence received indicates that minority and women-owned women-owned firms, certified or not, feel overwhelmed by the process, do not fully understand the process, or do not understand the advantages and benefits of being certified. So I really honed into those areas. I think they will be helpful moving forward. While the ordinance may not correct some of the opportunities for improvement there, maybe there are other ways internally that the administration can look to ensure that everyone feels included in the process and is welcome with a seat at the table. I also wanted to highlight from the recommendations of the executive summary. I noted a lot of engagement. So public and interactive version of the disparity study. I wanted to know what thoughts were around engagement with that piece, ensuring that residents and members of the public or those business owners really understood the intended impact of the disparity study. Forums on the procurement process, and then feedback opportunities for bidders who don't win. I'm a huge fan, everyone I think knows this by now, of metrics and engagement and providing feedback. If we don't know what we're doing wrong or where we could have performed better or scored better in terms of procurement, how can we possibly, look to sell, really, within the city? I think that feedback is absolutely critical. I don't know who the owners should be upon to share that feedback. But I think it will be helpful as well moving forward, and it could dispel some of the concerns that the business owners have. So anybody, I don't know who can speak to, the engagement with public and interactive versions of the disparity study?
That's to the fall of April. Right, so the state, not counting whatsoever. But this is not counting. In terms of here and over the public college for education first. I think the way forward is for this to go over. Quite frankly, the things that I've been doing since coming here has been pushing towards implementing a lot of what's come out with regards to recommendations. Talked a lot about this over the last year and a half in various roundtable. And I've always said, I believe that we're going to run parallel recommendations that it's very slightly with regards to recommendations coming from there's that to the mayor. And we did. So at the end of 2022 last year, that was an intersection. Stop the bring things down what we had for implementation. Now, to the earlier point regarding historical anecdotal beliefs. I believe as well that there is true. In terms of we could be as this new administration more welcome administration has. That was a part of it at one time too. I believe again that when we talk about the fees, delays and things like that, I'm hands off on that one because there's certain things that are those contracts, etc. Just yesterday, Green and I had a conversation with regard to my office being more involved with the language going into those pre-bid or announcements, etc. We have a meeting honestly set up tomorrow. About last week or some things, but how it was this when we start talking about, which I never agreed on, regards going to those that are used to having on private contractors and building quote unquote relationships, which we're always asked to do, and shake hands with opposed to this. And so from my perspective, what we need to make sure we're doing, and I am not docile at all when it comes to advocacy, attention for the underserved, underrepresented, other fidelity again. My point in saying all that is everything that and those notes is good to see the implementation part. But we need to Major's point, Council Major's point, is to make sure, which I think this is going to give us, that in terms of our administration, there's also a section where there's a report that should come in every September 1st from every department, report to the mayor, embedded in that piece in terms of how we're spending. That's not a team, no, it's a department. Those are the things that I still in our office and why the mayor brought me in to ask those questions, to have those conversations, work with my colleagues to help encourage them more to do business more efficiently and effectively and inclusively. That's what I've been doing. Thanks for that.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Are there any other final questions or comments before we move to our next steps? Okay, seeing and hearing none, I'm going to invite Mrs. Marita Kelly, Director of Financial Management, City of Harrisburg, and then Mr. Neil Grover, City Solicitor, to provide a strategic outlook and share some about the next step.
Thank you, Madam President. The comments that I'm going to make are more in relation to the direction that the administration has begun and will like to execute as we move through the first administration that Mayor Williams has executed. So I will begin with just a brief statement. Mayor Wanda R.D. Williams has demonstrated her leadership for diversity, equity, and inclusion. She started that on January 3rd, 2022, with the hiring of Carl Singleton as the Chief Equity and Compliance Officer, indicating her sincere desire to move the administration forward and to work with the council to do the same. The administration desires to coordinate, collaborate, and cooperate to assure full equity and compliance and make sure that we encourage inclusivity, develop better workforce development techniques through Jody Willingham, our Human Resources Director, do a better job to ensure that throughout the city and including with our purchases and contracting, that we assure diversity and inclusion. As noted by Carl Singleton, the Pennsylvania League of Cities, the National League of Cities, has greatly encouraged the diversity, equity, and inclusion, and they've proven that we're going to have a diverse work environment. You have a very constructive, hardworking, dedicated, and actually more successful environment. I just returned from Portland, Oregon, where the Government Finance Officers Association had two leading instructors on diversity, equity, and inclusion. The main speakers, the first day, the main speaker, the second day, was on this very topic, which proved that every city in the United States and Canada needs to be committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I believe this mayor has put this in her forefront of her objectives as a mayor and as a leader and a former council president, as you know, for multiple years. And so I think that the success of the city dependent on the success of how we can encourage equity and inclusivity, and that we can be proud to participate in a government that assures that all people's interests are represented.
Thank you, Solicitor Grover.
Madam President, from the lawyer perspective, a couple of things you can discuss. First, I would like second the mayor of diversity study, and she has agreed that she is going to only accept. We're going to accept the order, adopting that, and administration requesting the resolution to the council. Then there'll be a resolution that comes to the council. It has to be publicly enforced. Diversity study for the city, and requesting that an ordinance be put into place in 2023. The goal then would be that resolution would be for you the orders on hiatus. Then when you go back from on hiatus, there's hopefully a draft ordinance to start this study. I can't guarantee that because we need to begin the discussion about what people want to see in the ordinance. I will note that there was legal counsel brought into the process of diversity study because there is work reports are set out on how to make these constitutional effective. It's probably at the forward when it's not, and the ordinance will have to go down this line. There's other things that can be in an ordinance, including the level of accountability, in reporting, in data tracking, over the years. And the part two of that is in a name away. Those of us who are in society for a long time about is that there has to be a structure to do this kind of updating the data in a reliable and consistent way. And that is once you have done that, the data will become more robust and more robust, and adjustments can be made. There does have to be a commitment to that happens. That is, has to be people who have jobs that do that, or contracts that do that, on a regular basis, or it's just words on a piece of paper. And that's the responsibility of the administration and the council to put that in place. And frankly, I think you know, we can look back over the years. There's many reports for many departments on many things. And for the city code on many things. That don't get ready, because there's not enough meetings employed by the city manager. So they only come up once. But to make the mechanism work, you have to have a mechanism. to hold that information accountable to the public to the council. That is happening. That has to be done by forefront of minds in terms of budgets. But that is all doable legislative. That will doable in ordinance, and then follow the finance committee. This.
Thank you, Will. Council members, are there any questions for either of the institution presenters or anyone else?
Not necessarily a question, but thank you for that. Number. First, I'll go with the discussion we had about how we work to. It's something that constitutional muster, because a lot of times folks want to talk about quotas and other things that we can put into law, but we want to still ensure that there is accountability there. Hopefully, people, where I know President Bowers is very ambitious. Do all this, just got a draft according to the timeline about September of 2022. And it's now, so no matter how long it takes, always go in a positive direction, move in that direction. And I think that we've also hopefully don't to be that we know the other best practices that are out there. To go forward, I also think this briefly, I know the previous gubernatorial administration, we were going to look at some changes there and actually having a study that gives released every good idea as we're all legislation. My hope would be that we include a local board, and if that requires us to look at individual staff, whether it's the administration. There's office for within economic development for this thing, I believe, based on a lot of these same factors, and includes information regarding the rest of the city of Harrisburg and those businesses, just so that we can see our ability to identify that we all go more attractive, that information point of view, have those data. That we're not going to be able to capture the progress that's being made, and my sincere hope that as everyone here seems to be with that last towards improving that their effort to a Christian.
Thank you, and you're right, I am eager to take action on this. I think it's long overdue. Not only did we see the devastation of COVID around our black and brown businesses, but it was there before, if we're being honest. So yes, I am eager to have something in writing. For me, it's always if we don't have something in writing, there's no ordinance, there's nothing. We're just aimlessly asking the same question of the same developers and contractors that come before us on a weekly basis. So it's just breaking a cycle of routine. But we're also making an impact in our community. At this time, we'll open the floor for public comment. Just a few housekeeping notes. Please state your name, your address, biblically record. If you don't feel comfortable sharing your address, please refer to the city in which you live within the city. You have 2 minutes to share your comments. Mr. Truesdale will serve as our time speaker. It's not right. Is there anyone that would like to offer public comment? Hearing no one, anyone in the middle section? No one? Okay. Anyone to my left?
Too cold.
Evelyn and Jolene, and she said, I know, I'm breathing back into. Well, thank you all for joining us this evening. Thank you, Mr. Robinson, for your participation. Again, we wish you a speedy recovery. I think that our conversation this evening was very productive, much needed. I'm happy that we were able to schedule a policy work session just to discuss the disparity study. I'm hopeful that the document will continue to be a living document, will continue engagement to ensure that everyone understands what we're trying to do here. So the time is now 7:50 p.m. I will entertain a motion for that.
So,
Is there a second? Thank you.